in OnShape to make a gear, we're going to start out with our first sketch. Our first sketch needs to be on the front plane. So I'm going to select the front plane and select the sketch tool. You can also do that backwards if you'd like. To view the front, I'm going to come over to my view cube, click on the front so I'm looking straight at it. The first thing I'm going to start with is a center point circle. So I'm actually going to make two at the same time, both starting from the origin. Then I'm going to grab my dimension tool. The inner circle diameter is going to be 70 millimeters. The outer circle's diameter is going to be 90. That gives me about a 10 millimeter tall tooth all the way around my gear. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start to add in some construction lines. So when I do construction lines, I can either activate the construction first or I can activate the line tool first. Just both need to be blue. Okay? You can also change this later. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a construction line straight up in the air like that. I'll hit escape, do it again. This time the other way, line tool, and then construction. And I'm going to draw from the center up. We're going to dimension this with an angle later. The third one, if you happen to accidentally, as I just did, draw this as a regular line, you can select it and change it to construction later on. Now I'm going to use my dimension tool. From the center, or the one that's straight up, to this one, in this case, we're going to use 10 degrees. From this line to this line is also 10 degrees. You'll notice they get fully defined as they change from blue to black. Now, ultimately what I want is I want to draw one tooth in this area and one valley between the teeth in this area, and I want to get the entire profile. But if you look at it right now, if I make this the tooth, here to here to here, the tooth is wider at the top than it is at the bottom, which means it's going to get stuck, and my gear is not going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my line tool, and I'm going to draw from the part where those two intersect. You'll notice both of them turn orange. Click release. And I'm going to make sure I draw a non-vertical line up to here. I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to get the line tool again. And again, I'm going to start where these two intersect. A non-vertical line, not parallel. Don't do anything. Make sure it's just coming up and touching the edge. And put that there. You'll notice they're uneven, which is fine. I'm going to get my dimension tool. And again, I'm going to use a degrees dimension. Just move this down a little bit. From the construction line to this line of 7 degrees. From this line to this construction line, again at 7 degrees. You'll notice now if I follow the profile of the tooth as being from here, up, over, and down, the tooth is now narrower at the top than it is at the base. This is going to give me a gear tooth that actually works. Now, just because I'm going to set up a full path from here, up, over, down, over, and transitioning into the next tooth, I do actually need to do this one more time. So I'm going to get my line tool. I'm going to start where these last two intersect and draw up. And I'm going to take my dimension tool from here to there, also at 7 degrees. Okay? This is basically this edge of the next tooth. Okay? That's what I have set up here. Now, because I need to round these corners off, that's actually why I did this part as well. I need to round some of these corners off. And the easiest way to do that first is to actually use my trim tool and get rid of all the normal lines that I don't need. Okay? So I'm going to click trim. I'm going to get rid of most of the circle. You can see it's cutting all the way outside my view back around to the other edge. That's gone. I'm actually going to do the same thing down on the lower section as well. The lower circle, that's gone as well. This little piece I don't need. It is not part of the gear tooth. The gear tooth comes up, goes over, and goes down. So this part is not part of the gear tooth, nor is that, nor is this. Okay, I'm getting rid of all those lines I don't need. I also am actually going to get rid of this line as well. Okay, I have very little left, and you'll notice none of it is filled in gray anymore. Okay, my next order of business is to use my sketch fillet tool to round my corners. I'm going to round two corners. I'm going to click the two lines that make that corner. And then when this comes up, I can double click on the measurement and set it where I need it. For this case, I'm going to use 1.5 millimeters. Okay. Now I still have the tool, so I should be able to just click the next two. And as long as that's right, I click the right mouse button again. Or I'm sorry, the left mouse button. This one to this one. And then the reason that that extra line is there is I have to do this one to this one. Make sure you do not hit the construction line. Okay? And once that is done, I now have a complete cycle. Okay? So I am going to hit escape a couple times to get my pointer tool back. And I'm actually going to go ahead and delete this line because it has served its purpose. It was literally there just so I could create this. Okay? So now I have one complete cycle. So I'm going to do a little bit of math to figure out what to do in terms of my pattern. I have 10 degrees for the tooth and 10 degrees for the valley, giving me a total of 20 degrees out of the 360 degrees that makes a full circle. Okay? 20 degrees into 360 means I need 18 more of these cycles. Instead of drawing each and every one, I am now going to go to circular pattern. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to click all the lines I need. So I'm going to start with this straight line, the curve here, the straight line on top, the curve there, straight line down to the valley, curve at the bottom, the valley itself, and this last fillet. So all of this should be orange. I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to look for the X, the 3X. This is saying it wants to make 3 of them around my 360 degree circle. The nice part is because of my construction lines, it already picked the circle there. Okay, I need more than that. I said I needed 18. So I'm going to type in 18 and hit enter. As you're going to see, it's going to kind of give me a preview of what's going to happen. And as long as that's what I want, and it doesn't show all the teeth, but it does show several here and the last one, I'm going to go ahead and click accept. You'll know that you did this right because the gear will fill in gray because it fills back in. Okay? I know it doesn't clip off these little tails, but those don't seem to cause us a problem, so we're just going to leave those. Okay? This is my gear setup as far as the sketch goes. I am going to hit the check mark to close out the sketch. Now it's time to make it three-dimensional. Personally, I like to look at it three-dimensionally as I'm making it three-dimensional. So I'm going to click the very corner so I see front top right like this and front top right like this. I'm going to click sketch 1 and I'm going to click extrude. The thickness that I need is going to be 10 millimeters. Now, if I leave it just the way it is, it's going to come from the front plane forward 10 millimeters, which probably sounds exactly like what we want. However, when I plan ahead, I'm going to want to do some cuts on both sides of the gear, both the front face and the back face. So I'm going to actually not just do it blindly in one direction. I'm going to do it symmetrically. So what that shows, let me zoom in a little bit here, is the orange is my plane. That's where the front plane is. And you'll notice that for my 10 millimeter thickness, it's going 5 millimeters backwards and 5 millimeters forward, which since we've already done the mirror command, you know now means that my front plane can be a mirror plane if I want to do a cut in the front and have it match in the back, which we will do. I'm going to go ahead and click accept. That's exactly what I want. My next job is I'm going to go back to my front view. I'm going to click on the front of this, and I'm going to start another sketch. You're going to need to reduce the mass of this because this is a pretty thick gear and it doesn't necessarily need to be. I'm going to get my circle tool. I'm going to start at the origin and I'm going to bring this out. I'm now going to use my dimension tool and I'm going to set that at 60. That's all I need for this. I'm literally ready to close out of the sketch, go to my three-dimensional ISO view, pick sketch 2, click extrude. It wants to add material. In this case, I don't want it to add, I want it to remove. I'm going to have it remove 3 millimeters worth of material. So it's going to cut back in 3 millimeters. And when I hit check mark, you'll see that I get kind of this nice little ring web area. But it doesn't match on the other side. This is where mirror is really, really handy. So I'm going to go ahead and click the mirror tool. The type of mirror I want to do, I have to set this first, is a feature. I want to mirror a feature. So the feature to mirror is Extrude 2. The mirror plane is the front plane of my drawing. And when I accept that, doesn't look like anything happened right until I rotate it and you realize it's cut into the back as well. So if the whole thing was 10 millimeters thick and I cut in 3 millimeters on this side, 3 millimeters on that side, that means that 6 millimeters total material was removed. This part is only 4 millimeters thick. That some might see as a problem. So if I want to make a change, I'm going to click on Extrude 2 twice, and I'm going to change 3 to 2. Now, here's what makes my mirror better than somebody just drawing the same circle on the front and the back, is when I made that one change, this got shallower, and so did this. So the mirror keeps those two features connected, and that's really a handy thing. Okay? Now I'm going to start to add an area where I'm going to cut a hole through the gear so the gear could go on a shaft. I'm going to go ahead and click in here, and I'm going to start a sketch, and I'm going to look at the front. And as we've done a couple times, and we'll do a couple more times, I'm going to do a center circle from here out. And I am going to dimension it. And this time, this is going to be 25 millimeters. Okay. I am going to hit extrude. And I'm going to add material. I am going to change my blind to be up to face. Now let me actually change this, my view, real quick before I change anything. Instead of giving it a dimension, I'm going to change it to be up to face. And I'm going to pick this outside face. So what that is going to do is it's going to add the material back here, and it's going to keep this face and this face lined up together. Okay? So if I went back in and changed this one, okay, this would change with it, which is a nice feature. Okay? I'm going to zoom out so I don't have anything selected. Now the question may be, can I mirror that to the other side? We're going to give it a shot. It's, again, a feature mirror. It's Extrude 3 is the feature. Mirror plane is the front plane. And it'll only tell us if it's wrong. And it is wrong. The reason is that we can't do that because it's because of the type of extrude that we did. So I'm going to look at the back, and I'm just going to do the same steps again. So again, start a sketch, circle tool, middle, out, dimension is 25. Accept it, extrude it. Sketch 4 is what I'm doing. Adding material up to face, picking the face, and accepting it. Okay. Now, whether I do it from the front or the back, I can now click on this face, start a sketch. I'm going to look at it from directly there on. And I am going to go to the center, make a circle, dimension my circle using the dimension tool that I had a momentary lapse and couldn't find at 15 millimeters. I'm going to hit extrude using sketch 5, removing material, and instead of setting a distance, I'm going to say through all. This again means if I change the thickness of the gear, this hole is going to always cut all the way through. So that is a wonderful thing. And again, when we look at it three-dimensional, here we go. Last thing, I do want you to add a feature that helps to reduce the mass of this area, because again, this does not need to be that solid. You do not need to do this exactly as I do. In fact, I would like for you to use some of your own creativity in how you do it. Here's one option. I'm going to click on that area, start a sketch. I am going to just draw, for the sake of time, I'm going to draw a very simple circle. You've seen several different ways where you can do that, and I'm going to use some, I'm going to use my dimension tool to say, okay, this is a 10 millimeter circle. I'm going to actually move it to about 20 millimeters up. That's where I'm going to choose to put it. Actually, I don't love that, so I'm going to start bumping this up. Let's try 22. It's actually a little high. I'm going to try 21. That actually looks pretty good. So it's kind of centered in this area. That's what I was looking for. I'm going to click accept the sketch. I'm going to click to remove material. I'm again going to tell that to go through all. And the face is that one. And here we go. Well, that's just one cut. I don't want to do that a bunch of times. You'll notice that I can also pattern a feature circularly. So circular pattern, entities to pattern is going to be this extrude cut. Sorry, under remove. Extrude cut. We're going to go 3D. It's not letting me pick. Part pattern, sorry. Feature pattern. Here we go. Features to pattern. That one. Axis of pattern. It's not giving it to me. Let me see, axis of pattern. Let me see if it lets me select the circle. Instance count 4. So I can bump this up. So I don't need to just leave it as 4. So I picked the center circle because it's going to move it around the circle. I can bump this up. I can do it 7 times. Okay? I could do it 9 times. Okay? If I do it too many times, it's going to start to get really close. So I'm going to leave it at, you know what? I'm going to do 8. So we're going to do 8 occurrences. Again, don't make yours match mine exactly. But this is what I'm looking for. So we've got a gear that's thicker, that has a reduced area, that has a little hub that's nice and strong where it meets the whatever it sits on. Okay? And then I used my circular pattern of features to go ahead and get this all set up. Okay? This is the end of the gear. This is where I want you to get to. Okay? Please make sure you save this And in future videos, we'll go over how to create a smaller or larger gear that will mesh with this, and a little bar where you can actually set them all up as an assembly and rotate your gears, and they will work virtually before you do anything with them.